The Golden Leaf was not just any restaurant in Manhattan. With its crystal chandeliers catching the light just right, and its polished marble floors gleaming under the soft glow of wall sconces, it was where the rich and powerful came to be seen. Tonight was no different. Black limousines lined the street outside, dropping off guests in designer clothes and jewelry that cost more than what most people made in a year. Among the hustle and bustle of the kitchen staff, Sofia Martinez adjusted her black bow tie and smoothed down her white shirt. At 23, she had been working at the Golden Leaf for almost 2 years now. Not because she loved carrying heavy trays or dealing with demanding customers, but because the pay was better than most places, and she needed every penny. "Table 12 wants more champagne," called out Raj, another waiter who had been showing her the ropes since day one. "And watch out for the guy in the blue suit. He's been snapping his fingers at everyone." Sofia nodded, quickly grabbing a bottle from the ice bucket. "Thanks for the warning." She took a deep breath and pushed through the swinging doors that separated the chaos of the kitchen from the carefully orchestrated calm of the dining room. The evening air was thick with expensive perfume and the quiet murmur of important conversations. Tonight was the annual Arts Foundation Gala, one of the biggest events the Golden Leaf hosted. The restaurant had been closed to regular customers, and every table was filled with people who could change someone's life with a single phone call. Sofia moved between the tables with practiced ease. Her grandmother had always told her to walk like she was carrying a book on her head, and that advice had served her well in this job. She kept her eyes down, trying to be invisible as she refilled glasses and cleared plates. Being invisible was part of being a good server at the Golden Leaf, present when needed, gone when not. "Excuse me." A sharp voice cut through her thoughts. It was the man in the blue suit Raj had warned her about. He didn't look up from his phone as he spoke. "This steak is overcooked." "Take it back." "I'm very sorry, sir." "I'll have the kitchen prepare a new one right away," Sofia said, keeping her voice steady as she took the barely touched plate. The man finally looked up, his eyes barely registering her presence before returning to his screen. "Make it quick." As Sofia turned to head back to the kitchen, her gaze landed on the grand piano that stood in the corner of the room. It was a beautiful Steinway, its black surface catching the light from the chandeliers. The piano was the Golden Leaf's pride and joy, a centerpiece that added to the restaurant's sophisticated image. Usually, on nights like this, a hired pianist would play soft background music, nothing too distracting, just enough to fill the silence between conversations. But tonight the piano sat empty and silent. Sofia couldn't help but pause for a second too long, her eyes lingering on the instrument. Music had been her first love, long before she knew what it meant to work double shifts or worry about rent. Her fingers itched every time she walked past that piano, muscle memory recalling pieces she had practiced for years. "Eyes on the job." "Martinez," came the stern voice of Mr. Winters, the floor manager, breaking her moment of distraction. "We've got important people here tonight." "Yes, sir." "Sorry," Sofia said, quickly making her way to the kitchen to deal with the returned steak. Back in the kitchen, the heat hit her like a wall. Chefs moved with practiced precision, calling out orders and demands. Sofia handed the plate to the head chef, explaining the situation. "Again? That's the third send-back tonight," the chef grumbled, but took the plate and began preparing a new steak. While waiting, Sofia pulled out her phone to check the time. Her shift would end at midnight, and then she had a 2-hour practice session scheduled at the community center that let her use their piano during off hours. Sleep was a luxury she couldn't afford, not if she wanted to keep up with her music while working nearly full-time. Her grandmother's face smiled at her from the phone's wallpaper, a reminder of why she pushed herself so hard. Abuela Rosa had raised her after her parents died, working cleaning jobs and taking in sewing to make sure Sofia could keep taking piano lessons. Now it was Sofia's turn to take care of her grandmother, whose arthritis had gotten too bad for her to work anymore. "Order up for table 12, called the chef, sliding a new plate across the counter. Sofia tucked her phone away and grabbed the plate. As she pushed back through the doors into the dining room, she noticed a commotion near the entrance. The restaurant manager, Mr. Patterson, was having an intense phone conversation, his face growing redder by the second. Sofia delivered the steak to the man in the blue suit, who didn't even acknowledge her, then headed back to her section to check on her other tables. As she moved through the room, she overheard snippets of conversations. talk about gallery openings, new Broadway shows, and record deals. This was a different world from the one she knew, where discussions centered around which bills could wait another month and which medicines were covered by insurance. Near the bar, she spotted a group of people she recognized from music magazines: a famous composer, a conductor from the New York Philharmonic, and several record executives. They were laughing and clinking glasses, celebrating some success Sophia could only dream of. "Ladies and gentlemen," Mr. Patterson's voice suddenly rang out across the room. He stood near the piano, a strained smile on his face. "I regret to inform you that our scheduled pianist, Mr. Whitmore, has fallen ill and will not be able to perform this evening. We extend our sincerest apologies and hope the rest of your evening will still be enjoyable." A murmur of disappointment rippled through the crowd. The live piano music was a trademark of the Golden Leaf's special events, and many guests had been looking forward to it. "That's a shame," Sophia heard one of the music executives say. "I was hoping to unwind with some good music after that disaster of a meeting today." Mr. Patterson looked like he had swallowed something sour as he made his way back toward the kitchen. Loosening his tie slightly, Sophia continued her rounds, clearing plates and refilling water glasses. The evening seemed to stretch on endlessly. Her feet ached in her practical black shoes, and her lower back was starting to complain about the hours of standing. During a brief lull, she found herself near the empty piano again. Without thinking, she reached out and touched the edge of it, her fingers just brushing the polished wood. How different would her life be if she could sit at an instrument like this every day, instead of just during her precious practice hours at the community center? Dreaming on company time? Mr. Winters appeared beside her, eyebrows raised. Sophia pulled her hand back like she'd been burned. "No, sir. Just making sure there wasn't a water ring on the wood." He looked skeptical but was distracted by a signal from another server. "Just stay focused, Martinez. Big tips tonight if we do this right." As the evening wore on, Sophia noticed the energy in the room changing. Without the live music, conversations seemed to die earlier, and some guests were already checking their watches, considering an early departure. Mr. Patterson noticed it too, judging by his increasingly worried glances around the room. During her next trip to the kitchen, Sophia overheard him talking frantically on the phone. "What do you mean no one's available? It's only 8 o'clock. I don't care if they're at another gig. Offer them double. Triple? That's not in our budget, and you know it." He hung up and ran a hand through his thinning hair, looking defeated. "Problem, sir?" Raj asked as he loaded his tray with dessert plates. Mr. Patterson sighed heavily. "Whitmore is down with food poisoning, and every other pianist in the agency's roster is booked. The Arts Foundation people are going to be extremely disappointed. They specifically requested live music for their donors." Sophia hesitated, shifting her weight from one aching foot to the other. The words were on the tip of her tongue, but she bit them back. Who would believe that a waitress could step in for a professional pianist? But as she returned to the dining room and saw the piano sitting there unused while the energy of the party continued to fade, something inside her stirred. Music had been her lifeline through the hardest times. After her parents' death, during the months when Abuela Rosa was first diagnosed with arthritis, through every late night and early morning when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her. Maybe, just maybe, it could be her lifeline tonight too. She looked around at the wealthy crowd, at people who probably never had to choose between pursuing their passion and putting food on the table. They had no idea that the person refilling their water glasses had spent years perfecting Chopin and Liszt, that she could make a piano sing in ways that would surprise them all. Sophia took a deep breath and made a decision that would either get her fired or change her life forever. She would find Mr. Patterson and tell him she could play. The worst he could say was no, and the best. Well, the best was something she hardly dared to imagine. With a renewed sense of purpose, she straightened her bow tie and began walking toward the manager's office, her heart pounding with each step. Sophia's heart hammered in her chest as she approached Mr. Patterson's office. Through the half-open door, she could see him sitting at his desk, head in his hands. For a moment, she almost turned back. Who was she to offer herself as a replacement for a professional pianist? But the thought of the silent piano sitting unused while she had the ability to bring it to life pushed her forward. She knocked softly on the doorframe. "What is it?" Mr. Patterson looked up, his expression making it clear that unless she was bringing good news about a miracle pianist appearing out of thin air, He wasn't interested. "Excuse me, Mr. Patterson. I couldn't help overhearing about the pianist situation," Sophia began, her voice quieter than she intended. She cleared her throat and tried again. "I might be able to help." He raised an eyebrow. "You know a pianist who can be here in the next 10 minutes? "Not exactly." Sophia took a deep breath. "I play. I've been playing since I was 6. Mr. Patterson stared at her for a long moment, then let out a short laugh. "You're joking, right? You're telling me my waitress can suddenly fill in for Vincent Whitmore?" He shook his head. "Look, I appreciate the offer, but this isn't amateur hour. These people are expecting a professional." Sophia felt her cheeks burn, but she stood her ground. "I understand that, sir, but I studied at the community music school for 12 years. And I've been practicing at the community center downtown whenever I can. I know most of the classical pieces Mr. Whitmore usually plays here." Mr. Patterson's phone rang, and he held up a finger to pause their conversation. "Yes? No, we still haven't found a replacement." I know. "The Hendersons are threatening to leave? Tell them we're working on it." He hung up and looked at Sophia with new consideration. Desperation was starting to set in. "What's your name again?" "Sophia Martinez, sir. And you really play? This isn't some kind of joke?" "I really play, sir. I can prove it." Mr. Patterson drummed his fingers on the desk, clearly weighing his options. The situation was dire. The mood in the dining room was dropping by the minute, and some of their most important guests were getting restless. "Fine," he said finally. "You get one song, one. If you're good, you can continue. If not..." He didn't need to finish the threat. They both knew her job was on the line. "Thank you, sir. You won't regret it." Sophia tried to keep the tremor out of her voice. "Go tell Winters you're taking a break. And for heaven's sake, wash your hands first." Sophia nodded and hurried out of the office, her mind racing. This was her chance, a chance she'd never dreamed would come in a place like the Golden Leaf. She found Mr. Winters by the bar, explaining to a disgruntled guest why they couldn't change the entire menu to accommodate his sudden desire for Thai food. "Mr. Winters," she said when he finished with the guest, "Mr. Patterson asked me to tell you I'm taking a break. He wants me to play the piano." Mr. Winters looked at her like she'd grown a second head. "You play the piano?" "Yes, sir. Just for a bit, while they try to find a replacement for Mr. Whitmore." He shook his head in disbelief. "Whatever Patterson says. But your tables better not suffer, understand?" "Raj said he could cover them for a few minutes," Sophia said, having already asked her colleague for the favor on her way to find Mr. Winters. "Fine, but make it quick." Sophia practically ran to the employee bathroom, where she carefully washed her hands and splashed some water on her face. In the mirror, her reflection looked back at her, dark eyes wide with a mixture of fear and excitement. Her long black hair was pulled back in a neat bun, required by the restaurant's dress code. She wished she had something nicer than her waitress uniform to wear for her impromptu performance, but there was no time to worry about that now. What should she play? Something impressive but not too showy. Something that would create the right atmosphere for the evening, without drawing too much attention. Her mind flipped through her mental catalog of pieces. Debussy's Clair de Lune? Too obvious. A Beethoven sonata? Too demanding for an opening piece. She settled on Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. Beautiful, romantic, and perfect for a dinner setting. She could save the more technically challenging pieces for later, if there was a later. Taking one final deep breath, she left the bathroom and made her way to the piano. A few heads turned as she approached it, probably wondering why a waitress was heading toward the performance area instead of the kitchen. Mr. Patterson stood nearby, his expression a mix of hope and dread. The piano bench felt different from the one at the community center, softer, better maintained. The Steinway gleamed under the lights, its keys a perfect row of ivory and ebony inviting her touch. Sophia sat down, adjusting her position and taking a moment to center herself. She was aware of Mr. Patterson watching her, of a few curious glances from nearby tables, but as soon as her fingers touched the keys, the rest of the world fell away. The first notes of the nocturne filled the air, soft and delicate. Sophia closed her eyes briefly, letting the familiar melody guide her hands. This piano was magnificent, responsive in a way the old community center piano could never be, each note ringing clear and true. She kept her playing subtle at first, not wanting to interrupt conversations too abruptly, but gradually she let herself sink deeper into the music, adding more emotion, more of herself into each phrase. By the time she reached the middle section of the piece, she noticed the conversations around her had begun to quiet. A few people had turned in their seats to look at the piano, surprised by the sudden appearance of music. Mr. Patterson's tense expression had softened slightly, and he gave her a small nod of approval. Encouraged, Sophia let the music swell a little more, her hands dancing across the keys with the confidence that came from years of practice. This was what she loved, what she lived for. Those moments when the music flowed through her like she was merely a channel for something greater than herself. As the final notes of the nocturne faded away, there was a brief silence followed by a scattering of applause. It wasn't the thunderous response of a concert hall, but it was genuine appreciation from people who hadn't expected to hear live music at all that evening, let alone from someone in a server's uniform. Mr. Patterson approached the piano, his relief evident. "That was surprisingly good," he said quietly, so only she could hear. "The Hendersons have stopped complaining and Dr. Tanaka actually put his phone down." "Can you keep going?" Sophia nodded, a smile spreading across her face. "Yes, sir. I have plenty more pieces I can play." "Good. Take a 15-minute set. Then check with your tables, then another set if the crowd is still responding well." "Thank you. Mr. Patterson, I won't let you down." As he walked away, Sophia turned back to the piano, her fingers already itching to play again. She moved into a gentle Schubert impromptu, then a Bach piece, each selection chosen carefully to maintain the perfect dinner atmosphere. People began to notice. A woman in a stunning red dress stopped by the piano between pieces to request Debussy. An older gentleman nodded appreciatively when she played a Mozart sonata he recognized. The music executives at the corner table had stopped their loud conversation and were now glancing her way occasionally, though she tried not to let it make her nervous. After her first set, Sophia quickly checked on her tables, apologizing for her absence. To her surprise, none of her customers seemed upset. In fact, many complimented her playing, looking at their waitress with new eyes. "I had no idea you were so talented," said the woman at table 7, a regular who usually barely acknowledged Sophia's existence. "You play beautifully. Thank you, ma'am. Can I get you anything else?" "No, dear. Just go back and play some more. It's lovely to have music again." Raj caught her eye from across the room and gave her a thumbs up. "You're killing it," he whispered as they passed each other. "Mr. Winters looks like he swallowed a lemon, but in a good way, like he can't believe what he's hearing." Sophia laughed, feeling lighter than she had in months. This night was turning into something magical, something she couldn't have imagined when she clocked in for her shift. As she returned to the piano for her second set, she decided to take a risk. Instead of sticking to the safe, background-appropriate pieces, she would play something with more fire, more passion. Her fingers found the opening chords of Chopin's Ballade No. 1 in G minor, a piece she had been working on for months, a piece that told a story through its dramatic shifts in mood and tempo. This was a concert piece, not background music. It demanded attention. But something told Sophia that this was her moment to truly show what she could do. The first gentle notes gave no hint of the storm to come. Sophia let the music build gradually, her body swaying slightly as the piece progressed. This was the most challenging work in her repertoire, one that had taken countless hours of practice to master. But tonight, on this perfect piano with this unexpected audience, her fingers seemed to know exactly what to do. As the piece grew more complex, more passionate, she lost herself completely in the performance. She forgot she was a waitress playing during her break. She forgot about the elite crowd, the fancy restaurant, the worry about paying next month's rent. There was only the music, flowing from her heart through her hands and into the world. She didn't notice when the dining room fell completely silent. She didn't see the astonished expressions on the faces of the guests, or the way the music executives at the corner table had put down their drinks and were now watching her with undisguised interest. She didn't see Mr. Patterson standing by the bar, mouth slightly open in shock. For those minutes, Sophia Martinez wasn't a waitress anymore. She was exactly who she had always dreamed of being, a musician, sharing her soul through the universal language of music. The Chopin Ballade grew more intense under Sophia's fingers. The piece was like a roller coaster, gentle one moment, thunderous the next. She leaned into the powerful sections, her body moving with the music as her hands flew across the keys. Years of practice had built this into her muscle memory. But tonight something extra was flowing through her. Perhaps the energy of the moment, the quality of the instrument, or simply the joy of finally being heard. In the dining room, a remarkable transformation was taking place. One by one, conversations stopped mid-sentence. Forks paused halfway to mouths. Phones were set down as heads turned toward the piano in the corner, where the waitress who had been serving them all evening was now creating something extraordinary. At table 9, a gray-haired woman in an expensive blue dress touched her husband's arm. "Listen," she whispered. "Really listen." Near the bar, two businessmen who had been arguing about stock prices fell silent, their disagreement forgotten as the music washed over them. A waiter delivering a tray of desserts slowed his pace, nearly forgetting his destination as he watched Sophia play. Mr. Winters, who had been skeptical from the start, stood frozen by the kitchen doors, his usual stern expression replaced by one of disbelief. And at the corner table, where the music executive sat, a man with silver-rimmed glasses leaned forward in his chair, his eyes never leaving Sophia's hands as they danced across the keyboard. The ballad built toward its first climax, and Sophia felt a bead of sweat roll down her back beneath her uniform shirt. This wasn't an easy piece, and it demanded everything from a pianist: technical skill, emotional range, physical stamina, and deep understanding of the music's architecture. It was a piece that separated serious pianists from casual players, a piece that told a story if played right, and Sophia was telling that story with every fiber of her being. As her right hand raced through a particularly difficult passage, she heard someone gasp. The sound nearly broke her concentration, but she pushed through, keeping her focus on the music. The piece grew gentler again, a moment of peace before the storm, and Sophia took the opportunity to steal a quick glance at the room. What she saw almost made her fingers stumble. The entire dining room was watching her, not just a few curious guests or her boss checking up on her. Everyone. From the couple by the window who had been arguing earlier to the snooty man who had sent back his steak, all eyes were on her. Some people had even stood up from their tables to get a better view. Sophia quickly looked back at the keys, her heart racing even faster now. "Don't think about them," she told herself. "Just play. Just be the music." She dove back into the piece with renewed intensity, letting the next section flow through her fingers. The ballad was telling its story, a tale of struggle and triumph, of darkness and light, of questions and answers, and she was merely its voice. As she approached the most technically demanding section, Sophia took a deep breath. This was the part she sometimes struggled with during practice, the part where her fingers would occasionally trip over themselves. But tonight, with this audience on this piano, failure wasn't an option. Her hands moved with precision and passion, finding every note, every nuance. The difficult runs that had once seemed impossible now flowed from her fingers as naturally as breathing. It was as if she and the piano had become one instrument, one voice speaking directly to the hearts of everyone in the room. Phone cameras appeared, recording her performance. A woman near the front wiped away a tear. The man with the silver-rimmed glasses at the music executive's table was now scribbling something on a napkin, his expression intense. The final section of the ballade approached, the most dramatic part, where the music built to an almost unbearable tension before its powerful conclusion. Sophia gave it everything she had, her small frame somehow producing enormous sound from the instrument. Her fingers struck the keys with confidence, drawing out their full resonance, making the Steinway sing in a way it rarely did even under professional hands. And then, with a final flurry of notes cascading down the keyboard, the piece ended. Sophia's hands lifted from the keys, hovering for a moment in the air as the last notes hung in the room. Complete silence followed. For 3 heartbeats, no one moved, no one spoke, as if the entire restaurant was collectively holding its breath. Then the applause began. It started with a single person, the gray-haired woman in the blue dress, and quickly spread until the whole room was clapping. People rose to their feet. Someone whistled. A few people were calling "Bravo." The sound was deafening compared to the polite, scattered applause that had followed her earlier pieces. Sophia sat frozen at the piano, overwhelmed by the response. This wasn't the quiet appreciation of background music. This was the kind of reaction you'd hear in a concert hall after a virtuoso performance. Her cheeks flushed, and for a moment she didn't know what to do. Should she stand, bow? Play another piece? Mr. Patterson appeared at her side, beaming in a way she had never seen before. Stand up, he whispered. Take a bow. You've earned it. On shaky legs, Sophia stood and gave a small, awkward bow. The applause grew even louder. She noticed that Raj and some of the other staff had gathered by the kitchen doors and were clapping and cheering alongside the guests. Even Mr. Winters was applauding. Shaking his head in amazement. Play something else. Someone called out, Encore, added another voice. Sophia looked to Mr. Patterson for guidance. He nodded encouragingly. Give them one more. Anything you want. Sophia sat back down at the piano, her mind racing. What could possibly follow that performance? After a moment's consideration, her hands found the opening chords of Liszt's Liebestraum No. 3, a piece of pure beauty. Tender and romantic, a perfect contrast to the drama of the ballade. As she played, she noticed people returning to their seats, but no one resumed their previous conversations. All attention remained on her, on the music. Phones stayed out recording this unexpected performance. The woman in the red dress who had requested Debussy earlier was openly crying now, dabbing at her eyes with a napkin. The man with the silver-rimmed glasses had stopped writing and was simply listening. His eyes closed, a slight smile on his face. When the Liszt piece ended, the applause was just as enthusiastic as before. This time, Sophia felt a bit more prepared, standing and bowing with slightly more confidence. As the applause began to die down, Mr. Patterson stepped forward. Ladies and gentlemen, he addressed the crowd. We are delighted to introduce you to Sophia Martinez, who has graciously stepped in this evening to provide our musical entertainment. Sophia is usually one of our finest servers, but as you can now tell, her talents extend far beyond the dining room. This prompted another round of applause. Sophia felt her face grow hot with embarrassment and pride. Never in her wildest dreams had she imagined being introduced like this, standing beside a Steinway in front of New York's elite, while they applauded her playing. I think we can all agree, Mr. Patterson continued, that we've witnessed something quite special tonight. Sophia will continue to play for us throughout the evening, so please, enjoy the rest of your meal with this unexpectedly wonderful soundtrack. As people settled back into their dinners, now accompanied by excited chatter about what they had just witnessed, Mr. Patterson turned to Sophia. That was extraordinary, he said quietly. Truly extraordinary. I had no idea we had this kind of talent working for us. Thank you for giving me the chance, sir, Sophia replied, still feeling like she might wake up from this dream at any moment. Take a short break, get some water, and then come back for another set. You're officially our pianist for the night. He smiled, a genuine smile, not the forced one he usually wore when addressing the staff. And we'll discuss a raise on Monday. As Mr. Patterson walked away, Sophia felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to find Raj standing there holding out a glass of water. You've been holding out on us, he said, grinning. All this time we thought you were just a waitress with a good memory for orders. Sophia took the water gratefully. I am a waitress with a good memory for orders, she said after taking a sip. I'm just also a pianist. Not just a pianist, Raj corrected. Whatever that was something else entirely. He glanced around at the still buzzing dining room. You've woken them up. I've worked here 3 years and I've never seen these people actually pay attention to anything but themselves. Before Sophia could respond, a shadow fell across them. She looked up to see the man with the silver-rimmed glasses from the music executive's table standing there, studying her with keen interest. Ms. Martinez, is it? He asked, his voice deep and cultured. Yes, sir, Sophia answered, suddenly nervous again. Thomas Reynolds, he said, extending his hand. I'm the artistic director at Crescent Moon Records. That was a remarkable performance of the Chopin. Where did you study? Sophia hesitated, embarrassment washing over her. Next to the credentials of everyone else in this room, her musical education would sound pitiful. I took lessons at the community music school in Queens until I was 18. Since then, I've been teaching myself, practicing whenever I can at the community center downtown. Reynolds' eyebrows rose. Self-taught? For the past, how many years? 5 years, sir. He shook his head in disbelief. And you work here as a waitress? Yes, sir. Full-time, plus some extra shifts when they're available. When do you practice? Late nights, early mornings. Whenever the community center lets me use their piano. Reynolds was silent for a moment, studying her with those keen eyes. "Do you have a card, Ms. Martinez?" Sophia almost laughed. "A card?" As if she were a professional musician with business cards to hand out. "No, sir. I don't have cards." He nodded as if this confirmed something for him, then reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his own card. "I'd like to talk with you more, but not here, not tonight. Call my office on Monday. We should discuss your future." Sophia took the card with slightly trembling fingers, reading the elegant script. Thomas Reynolds, Artistic Director, Crescent Moon Records. One of the most prestigious classical music labels in the country. "Thank you, sir," she managed to say. "I will." Reynolds gave her a small nod and returned to his table, where his colleagues immediately leaned in, clearly asking about his conversation with the waitress-turned-pianist, Raj, who had witnessed the entire exchange. Let out a low whistle. "Did that just happen? Did Thomas Reynolds just give you his card?" Sophia looked down at the small piece of paper in her hand, still not quite believing it herself. "I think he did. Your life just changed, Sophia. You know that, right?" She looked up at her friend, then around the room where people were still stealing glances at her, some taking photos, others pointing her out to their companions. She thought about the community center piano with its sticky keys and slightly out-of-tune middle register. She thought about her tiny apartment and her grandmother waiting at home, probably already asleep in the old recliner. She thought about all the double shifts and the aching feet and the customers who never looked her in the eye. And she thought about the music that had kept her going through all of it. The dream she had never quite allowed herself to believe in fully. "Maybe," she said softly, tucking the card carefully into her pocket. Maybe it did. For the rest of the evening, Sophia felt like she was floating between two worlds. One moment she was at the piano, fingers dancing across the keys. The next she was checking on her tables, refilling water glasses, and taking dessert orders. But everything had changed. The way people looked at her, spoke to her. It was as if she had suddenly become visible after years of being just another server in a black and white uniform. "That Mozart piece was divine," said a woman who had barely acknowledged Sophia's existence earlier in the evening. "Have you played at Carnegie Hall?" Sophia smiled and shook her head. "No, ma'am. Just community centers and school recitals." "Well, that's going to change, mark my words." At another table, a man in an expensive suit pressed $100 bill into her hand. "For the music," he said. "Best entertainment I've had in months." By the time Sophia returned to the piano for her third set, word had spread beyond the dining room. Staff from the kitchen, cooks, dishwashers, prep workers, found excuses to peek through the doors or take short breaks in the dining area to hear her play. The bartender, who usually looked bored with everything, was recording her performance on his phone. Mr. Patterson had a new spring in his step as he moved through the room, accepting compliments from guests about his brilliant surprise entertainment. No one needed to know that the surprise had been as much his as theirs. For this set, Sophia chose pieces that showed different sides of her playing. A lively Mozart sonata, a dreamy Debussy prelude, and finally, a passionate tango by Piazzolla that she had been working on for weeks. With each piece, her confidence grew. This was what she was meant to do. This was who she was meant to be. The room responded to her energy. People who had been preparing to leave decided to stay for another drink. Guests who had finished their meals lingered at their tables, unwilling to miss a note. A few couples even began dancing to the tango, creating an impromptu dance floor near the bar. Thomas Reynolds remained at his table, watching Sophia with thoughtful eyes. He had taken out his phone and appeared to be making notes between pieces. Occasionally, he would lean over to speak with his colleagues, who nodded and looked at Sophia with growing interest. After finishing the Piazzolla, Sophia stood to another round of enthusiastic applause. She was about to bow when she noticed a commotion at the entrance to the dining room. Turning, she saw an older woman being escorted in by the maitre d'. It took her a moment to realize who it was. "Abuela?" Sophia whispered, shocked. Rosa Martinez made her way slowly into the room, leaning on her cane. She was wearing her good dress, the navy blue one she saved for special occasions, and her silver hair was neatly pinned up. Beside her walked Sophia's neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who must have helped her get here. Sophia rushed over to them. "Abuela, what are you doing here?" "It's so late." Rosa's eyes were bright with tears and pride. Mrs. Chen got a call from Raj. He said I needed to come, that my nieta was playing the piano for all these fancy people. She looked around the elegant dining room with wonder. He said you were magnificent. Sophia hugged her grandmother gently, mindful of her frail bones. You should be home resting, abuela. And miss this? Never. Rosa cupped Sophia's face in her weathered hands. I always told you, didn't I? That someday people would hear how special you are. Mr. Patterson approached them, curiosity evident on his face. Sophia quickly introduced her grandmother and Mrs. Chen. Your granddaughter has quite a gift, he told Rosa. She saved our evening and impressed a lot of important people. Rosa nodded, unsurprised. I knew when she was 6 years old. Her teacher said she had never seen fingers move like that on someone so young. She turned back to Sophia. Now I want to hear you play. That's why I came all this way. Mr. Patterson smiled. By all means. In fact, he turned and signaled to a waiter who quickly prepared a table near the piano. Please be our guest for the rest of the evening. As Rosa and Mrs. Chen were seated, Sophia returned to the piano. Her heart felt so full it might burst. All these years, her grandmother had sacrificed everything to nurture her talent, working long hours cleaning houses to pay for lessons, encouraging her when she wanted to give up, believing in her when no one else did. And now, finally, Rosa would see that those sacrifices hadn't been in vain. This is for my grandmother, Sophia announced to the room, her voice stronger than she expected. She's the reason I play. She began Chopin's Nocturne in C-sharp minor, Rosa's favorite piece, one Sophia had played for her many times on the old upright piano in their apartment building's community room. As she played, she watched her grandmother's face, saw the tears sliding down her cheeks, the smile that couldn't be contained. The piece was both melancholy and hopeful, much like their lives had been. Through all the hardships, the loss of Sophia's parents, the struggles to make ends meet, Rosa's worsening arthritis, music had been their constant, their comfort, their shared language of love. When the last note faded away, the room erupted in applause once more. Rosa was clapping harder than anyone, despite the pain it must have caused her arthritic hands. During her break, Sophia sat with her grandmother, who couldn't stop smiling. Tell me everything, Rosa insisted. How did this happen? As Sophia explained the evening's events, she noticed Thomas Reynolds approaching their table. He nodded politely to Rosa and Mrs. Chen before addressing Sophia. Ms. Martinez, I hope I'm not interrupting, but I wanted to introduce you to a few of my colleagues before we leave. He gestured to the small group of people standing nearby. This is Diane Powell, our head of talent development, and Gregory West, our senior producer. Sophia stood to shake their hands, feeling oddly formal in her waitress uniform. And who might this lovely lady be? Reynolds asked, looking at Rosa. This is my grandmother, Rosa Martinez, Sophia said proudly. She's the one who made sure I had piano lessons, even when we couldn't really afford them. Reynolds smiled warmly at Rosa. Then we all owe you a debt of gratitude. Mrs. Martinez, your granddaughter has a rare gift. Rosa beamed. I always knew. We'd like to invite both of you to our studio next week, Reynolds continued. We have some things to discuss that I think will interest you greatly. He handed Sophia another card, this one with a handwritten note on the back. This is my private number. Call me tomorrow and we'll set up a time. As Reynolds and his colleagues returned to their table to gather their things, Sophia sat back down, feeling dizzy with the possibilities suddenly opening before her. What just happened? Mrs. Chen asked, wide-eyed. Rosa took Sophia's hand. Life changed, she said simply. That's what happened. Across the room, Sophia noticed other changes taking place. Guests who had spent the evening ignoring the staff were now asking her colleagues about her. Where had she studied? How long had she worked here? Did she perform elsewhere? People who wouldn't normally give her a second glance were now snapping photos, some even approaching for selfies. Mr. Winters, who had never once complimented her work in 2 years of employment, now couldn't stop telling people how he had always seen something special in that girl. Even the man in the blue suit who had sent back his steak was asking if she had a website or social media accounts where he could follow her career. Raj caught her eye from across the room and mimed a phone with his hand, pointing at her excitedly. When she checked her own phone during her next break, she saw why. Videos of her performance were already appearing online. shared by the restaurant's wealthy patrons with their thousands of followers. One clip of her playing the Chopin ballad had over 5,000 views already, with comments pouring in. "Who is this girl? From waitress to virtuoso in one night. Someone get her a record deal now. This is what raw talent looks like." Sophia could hardly believe it. For years she had practiced in empty rooms, playing for no one but herself and occasionally her grandmother. Now suddenly, thousands of people were hearing her music, responding to it, sharing it with others. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Sophia played 2 more sets, each met with enthusiastic applause. Guests who would normally have left by 10 or 11 stayed until closing time, reluctant to miss a single piece. Tips flowed in like never before, with many people slipping extra bills into her hand with whispered compliments. By the time the last guest departed, it was well past midnight. Rosa had fallen asleep in her chair despite the excitement, and Mrs. Chen was gently keeping watch over her. The staff, who would normally be rushing to clean up and go home, lingered in the dining room, many of them approaching Sophia to express their amazement and congratulations. "You've been holding out on us, Martinez," said the head chef, who had come out of the kitchen to shake her hand. "All this time we thought you were just good at carrying plates." "I am good at carrying plates," Sophia replied with a tired smile. "I've had a lot of practice." Mr. Patterson called everyone together before they left. "I think we can all agree that tonight was something special," he said. "Thanks to Sophia, what could have been a disaster turned into one of our most successful events ever. The Arts Foundation people are already asking to book her for their next gala." This prompted a round of applause from the staff. Sophia blushed, unused to being the center of attention among her colleagues. "Starting next week," Mr. Patterson continued, "we'll be featuring Sophia on piano 3 nights a week. In addition to her regular shifts if she wants them." He turned to her. "That is, if you're still planning to work here. Something tells me you might be getting other offers soon." Sophia thought about the card in her pocket, about Thomas Reynolds and his colleagues, about the videos already spreading across the internet. Was this really happening? Was her life actually changing this dramatically in a single night? She looked at her grandmother, sleeping peacefully in the chair, the woman who had believed in her talent even when Sophia herself had begun to doubt. She looked at her colleagues, people she had worked alongside for years, now seeing her in an entirely new light. She looked at the beautiful Steinway that had helped her show the world who she truly was. "Thank you, Mr. Patterson," she said. "I'd be honored to play here. But you're right. I think things might be changing for me." As the staff dispersed to finish their closing duties, Raj came to sit beside her. "So," he said, "how does it feel to become famous overnight?" Sophia laughed softly. "I'm hardly famous, Raj." He showed her his phone, where the view count on one of her videos had now passed 10,000. "I wouldn't be so sure about that. The internet works fast." He scrolled through the comments. "Look, people are already asking who you are, where they can hear more of your playing." For the first time, the full reality of what had happened tonight began to sink in. She had been given a chance, one unlikely, unexpected chance, and she had seized it with both hands. All those years of practice, all those hours at the community center piano, all those sacrifices made by her grandmother, they had led to this moment, this opportunity. "It feels," she said slowly, finding the right words, "like I've been walking through my life wearing a disguise, and tonight for the first time people saw the real me." Raj nodded. "Well, the real you is pretty amazing. Don't forget us little people when you're selling out concert halls." Sophia looked around the now quiet restaurant, at the place where her life had just taken such an unexpected turn. "I could never forget," she said. "This is where it all began." The morning after her unexpected performance, Sophia woke up disoriented. For a moment she thought she'd dreamed the whole thing. The piano, the applause, Thomas Reynolds and his business card. But then she spotted her waitress uniform hanging on the back of her bedroom door, the pocket still bulging with the cards, and hastily scribbled phone numbers she'd collected. It had been real. All of it. She reached for her phone and was immediately overwhelmed. Hundreds of notifications lit up her screen, friend requests, messages from people she barely knew, alerts that she'd been tagged in videos and posts. One of the clips from last night had now been viewed over 50,000 times and was still climbing. "Abuela?" Sophia called, pushing herself out of bed. "Are you awake?" She found her grandmother in their tiny kitchen, already dressed and making coffee. Despite getting home well after midnight, Rosa looked energized, her eyes bright with excitement. "There she is," Rosa said, smiling widely. "My famous granddaughter." Sophia laughed, kissing her grandmother on the cheek. "Hardly famous, abuela." Rosa pointed to the ancient laptop they shared open on the kitchen table. "Tell that to all these people writing about you. Mrs. Chen's son showed me how to search for you this morning." Sophia peered at the screen and felt her breath catch. There were blog posts, social media threads, even a short write-up on a local news site. Waitress stuns elite crowd with virtuoso piano performance. Someone had posted a clear video of her playing the Chopin Ballade, capturing the moment when the room fell silent in awe. "This is crazy," Sophia whispered, scrolling through the comments. People she had never met were praising her playing, sharing the video with friends, asking where they could hear more from her. "It's what you deserve," Rosa said firmly. "What we always knew would happen someday." Sophia's phone buzzed with a text from Raj. "Have you seen the news? You're trending. Also, Mr. Patterson wants to know if you can come in early tonight to discuss your new schedule." Before she could reply, another message came in. This one from a number she didn't recognize. "Ms. Martinez, this is Thomas Reynolds. I hope it's not too early to call. I'm eager to discuss your future. Please contact me at your earliest convenience." Sophia showed the message to her grandmother, who clasped her hands together in delight. "Call him. Call him now!" "But what do I say? I don't know anything about record deals or studios or, you know, music," Rosa interrupted gently. "That's enough. The rest you can learn." Sophia took a deep breath and called the number. Reynolds answered on the second ring. "Ms. Martinez, good morning. I hope you've had time to process last night's events." "Barely," Sophia admitted. "Everything's happening so fast." Reynolds chuckled. "That's often how it goes when talent meets opportunity. I've been in this business for 30 years, and I've rarely seen a reception like the one you received last night. Raw talent like yours is uncommon. Thank you, sir. Now, I'd like to invite you and your grandmother to our studio tomorrow at 10 a.m. We have a Steinway concert grand I think you'll enjoy playing, and we should discuss your future. Does that work for you?" Sophia glanced at Rosa, who was nodding vigorously. "Yes, that works perfectly. Excellent. And Ms. Martinez, bring some of your most challenging pieces. I want our team to see your full range." After hanging up, Sophia sat in stunned silence for a moment. "See?" Rosa said, squeezing her hand. "Everything is changing just like I always said it would." The next few days passed in a whirlwind. The visit to Crescent Moon Records was like stepping into another world. The sleek, modern studio with its state-of-the-art equipment and the magnificent Steinway grand piano made Sophia feel like she had finally found where she belonged. She played for hours. Bach, Chopin, Liszt, Rachmaninoff, losing herself in the music while Reynolds and his team listened intently, occasionally making notes or whispering to each other. When she finally finished, Reynolds approached with a contract in hand. "We'd like to sign you, Ms. Martinez. A 3-album deal with an advance that should allow you to focus entirely on your music." Sophia stared at the figure on the paper, unable to process the number of zeros. It was more money than she had ever imagined having. I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Reynolds suggested with a smile, "and then we'll discuss getting you proper training to refine that remarkable natural talent of yours." Later that week, Sophia returned to the Golden Leaf, not as a waitress, but as a guest of honor. Mr. Patterson had arranged a special event to celebrate her success, inviting regular customers and media to hear her play. As she entered through the front door for the first time, rather than through the staff entrance in the back, she was struck by how different the restaurant looked from this perspective. The hostess, who had barely acknowledged her existence for 2 years, now greeted her warmly, escorting her to a reserved table where her grandmother already waited. Raj spotted her from across the room and rushed over, pulling her into a hug. "Look at you. No more black and white uniform." Sophia laughed, smoothing down the new blue dress she'd bought for the occasion. "It feels strange to be on this side of things." "Get used to it," Raj said. "You're going places, girl." Mr. Patterson approached their table, beaming. "Our guest of honor. Everyone's been asking when you'll play." "Whenever you'd like," Sophia replied. It still felt surreal to be treated this way in a place where she had spent so many hours being virtually invisible. After a brief introduction, Sophia made her way to the now familiar piano. The room fell silent as she took her seat, adjusting the bench just as she had done that fateful night. "First, I want to thank everyone for coming," she began, surprised by her own confidence. "A week ago I was serving drinks at that table over there, and now—" She gestured to the packed dining room. "Life can change in an instant when you're brave enough to take a chance." She played for nearly an hour, selections from what would become her first album. The crowd was even larger than the night of the Arts Foundation Gala, with people standing in the back just to hear her. Among the audience was a reporter from the New York Times, who approached her afterward. "Ms. Martinez, would you have time for an interview? We're doing a feature on unexpected paths to success in the arts." The article, published the following Sunday, catapulted Sophia further into the spotlight. From serving tables to serving music, the waitress who became a classical sensation overnight ran with a photo of Sophia at the piano, her face alive with passion as her hands created magic on the keys. 6 months later, Sophia stood backstage at Lincoln Center, peering through the curtain at the sold-out hall. Her debut album had been released just 2 weeks earlier to critical acclaim. Words like refreshing, authentic, and revelatory appeared in reviews from critics who had been in the business for decades. "Nervous?" asked Reynolds, who had become not just her producer, but her mentor during these whirlwind months. "Terrified," Sophia admitted. "There are over 2,000 people out there, and every one of them is here because of what they heard in those videos from the Golden Leaf. Just play the way you did that night, like it's just you and the music." In the front row, Rosa sat proudly, wearing a new dress bought specially for the occasion. Beside her were Raj, Mrs. Chen, and even Mr. Patterson, all of whom had been given VIP tickets by Sophia. The stage manager gave her the 2-minute warning. Sophia took a deep breath, remembering the journey that had brought her here. The countless hours of practice at the community center, the double shifts at the restaurant, the nights she'd fallen asleep with her fingers still moving, playing pieces in her dreams. The moment when she'd gathered her courage and approached Mr. Patterson's office, taking the biggest risk of her life. "Ladies and gentlemen," came the announcement over the speaker system, "please welcome to the stage in her Lincoln Center debut, Sophia Martinez." The applause was deafening as Sophia walked onto the stage. The magnificent concert grand gleamed under the lights, far grander than even the beautiful Steinway at the Golden Leaf. She bowed to the audience, then took her seat, adjusting the bench, centering herself. Her eyes found her grandmother in the front row, saw the tears of joy already glistening on Rosa's cheeks. This moment belonged to both of them, to the young girl who had fallen in love with the piano, and to the woman who had sacrificed everything to nurture that love. Sophia placed her hands on the keys and began to play. The first notes of Chopin's Ballad No. 1 in G minor, the piece that had changed her life, filled the concert hall. Just as she had that night at the Golden Leaf, she lost herself in the music, letting it flow through her like a living thing. But this time, she wasn't a waitress stepping nervously up to a piano during her break. She was Sophia Martinez, classical pianist, exactly who she had always been meant to be. During the standing ovation that followed her performance, as roses landed at her feet and cheers echoed through the hall, Sophia thought about all the other dreamers out there. The baristas writing novels before dawn, the delivery drivers composing songs between routes, the nurses painting masterpieces on their days off. How many of them were just one brave moment away from changing their lives forever? As she took her final bow of the evening, Sophia made a silent promise to herself. No matter how far her career took her, she would never forget where she came from. She would use her platform to create opportunities for other hidden talents, to remind the world that extraordinary gifts sometimes come in ordinary packages. After all, sometimes the most beautiful music comes from the most unexpected places, like the hands of a waitress who dared to step up to the piano. Backstage after the concert, surrounded by well-wishers and flowers, Sophia's phone buzzed with a text from Raj. "Remember when you used to worry about Table 12 sending back their steak? Now look at you." Sophia smiled, typing back, "Best career change ever. But I still remember how to carry 4 plates at once. Some skills you never lose." When the crowd finally thinned, Rosa made her way backstage with the help of her cane. She didn't say anything at first, just held her granddaughter tight. "Are you proud, Abuela?" Sophia asked softly. Rosa pulled back, her eyes shining. "I've always been proud. From the very first day you touched a piano key. She cupped Sophia's face in her weathered hands. But now the whole world knows what I've known all along, that my granddaughter has music in her soul. That night, as Sophia lay in bed in her new apartment, a far cry from the tiny place she had shared with her grandmother for so many years, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. About courage and chance and dreams that refuse to die. Sometimes all it takes is one moment of bravery to change everything. One step toward the thing you love most in the world. One chance to show who you really are. And sometimes, just sometimes, when a waitress steps up to a piano, magic happens.